Hey everyone, FTX customers lost about $15 billion back when FTX melted down because they had been loaning out their customers' funds illegally back in 2022. And that could have been avoided if more of those customers had their Bitcoin in self-custody with something like Bitkey. Now, Bitkey did not exist back then, so there was only more complicated, difficult to use solutions like Ledger and Trezor. But now you don't have to worry about difficult to use because Bitkey is genius and it's awesome. So if you don't already have a Bitkey and you don't already have it set up, I would recommend you buy one. They're about $149 on bitkey.world. That website is bitkey.world. And look, just get it. And if you don't want to set it up, just stick it in your closet or in your drawer, waiting for the time you do want to set it up. And if you do want to set it up, look, it's super simple. It takes less than 6 minutes, and transfer just $1 of Bitcoin over to it. Just something. If you don't quite feel comfortable with self-custody being your own bank, then just transfer $1 just so you can see how it works. And then at some point in the future, if you feel comfortable with more, you can put more on there. Obviously, I recommend between 70% and 90% of someone's Bitcoin ultimately be in self-custody. But if that's not your comfort level today, I would much rather you have a Bitkey than not have a Bitkey. And that way you're at least ready. What the problem a lot of people found in the case of FTX is even when it was clear there were problems, they had nowhere to move their Bitcoin. They did not have a self-custody solution set up and ready to go. So even if they could have pulled their Bitcoin off of FTX at the last minute, they didn't because they did not have a place to put it. So in the case of Bitkey, if you have a Bitkey and if it's set up, then even if you don't quite feel comfortable with it today, even though it's super easy to use and you can't possibly lose your Bitcoin, especially if you have at least one trusted contact set up, then if something does start to look shaky or you don't like the news headlines you're seeing, you at least have the ability with a couple pushes of a button to put your Bitcoin in self-custody, excuse me, where you are not dependent on anyone else. So, highly recommended, bitkey.world. It's been getting great reviews on podcasts. Basically, everybody in the entire Bitcoin community agrees that Bitkey is infinitely easier to use than anything else that exists in the market by far. Nothing's even remotely close. They're literally in a complete league by themselves, and everyone agrees. So, buy yourself a Bitkey. And again, if you're not comfortable to set it up today, just leave it on a shelf until you are. If you are, set it up and put $1 on it. And as long as you have at least one trusted contact set up, as soon as you're comfortable, I recommend people keep between 70% and 90% of their Bitcoin on Bitkey. That way it is in your custody, it's in your control, and nobody can take it from you. And it's just, there was the recent article I posted earlier this week about the U.S. Department of Justice. They seized $50,000 from a small business and claimed that those U.S. dollars were not property because it was money, which is an absolutely ridiculous assertion, but Bitcoin is property. So the government cannot seize your Bitcoin and claim it's not your property because it's U.S. dollars, which is a ridiculous assertion that the U.S. government is making with regard to actually holding U.S. dollars. So even the Department of Justice does not think that if you have U.S. dollars, they're actually yours, because according to the Department of Justice, it's not real money. U.S. dollars are not real, it is not real property. It's just money, which they can take from you at will. Now, ultimately, they will lose that court case because it's a ridiculous assertion, but that is the government you're dealing with. You are dealing with a government who believes they can take your U.S. dollars and there's nothing you can do about it. That is not true for Bitcoin. Not only can you technologically keep them from taking your Bitcoin with Bitkey, but also they can't legally take your Bitcoin because Bitcoin is absolutely property, and that has been affirmed numerous times in the court system, that Bitcoin is property, regardless of whether the Department of Justice claims that U.S. dollars are not. So, buy yourself a Bitkey, set it up when you're ready, move Bitcoin over when you're ready. But look, it's super simple, and there's basically no way you can lose your Bitcoin, again, especially as long as you have at least one trusted contact set up. So, have a great day, everyone. Please at least buy a Bitkey. You're going to be glad you did. It's a better way to hold Bitcoin for the long term. I'm not saying move it back and forth to Coinbase like every day or every month or even every year. Just keep it for long-term savings on Bitkey. The Bitcoin you don't think you're going to need for at least 2 or 3 years, just move it over to Bitkey, and it'll be waiting for you when you need it. And it's super secure, and it's in your self-custody. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks.